Hello, this is Community Forum. I know it's been a while since many of you have seen me, but my name is Joseph Feaster. I'm the host of the program, and hopefully, you are following the science and not the politicians, and that you and your families are all doing well. This is a program today for a person who's running for an office in Norfolk County. Is a friend of mine. We worked together for a bit at a firm called Win and Win. And now, this candidate who I'm going to introduce to you is not only running for the Register of Probate in Norfolk County, but has been a extraordinary attorney throughout Norfolk County and throughout Massachusetts for many, many years. And that's in the form of Mike Walsh, who is running for the Register of Probate for Norfolk County. So, Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. So nice to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to people who care enough to vote and do it regularly. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, Mike, I wanted to do this because one, as I said, I've known you, I've worked with you. I think you're an excellent attorney, and certainly I think that you are the right person for this position. But first and foremost, I like to have folks know about the person with whom I'm having this conversation. So I want you first to tell us a little bit about you, background, experience, family, where you grew up. We want to know all of those types of details. And then I clearly want you to tell folks why you were running for this position of Registrar of Norfolk County. And we also will get into, because most people probably have little idea what that is, and we'll talk about that as well. But why don't you start telling people about who you are?
Sure. So, Joe, I'm 58 years old. I am married. I have three children with my wife right now. So I have a total of six children, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But I live in Westwood now, but I wasn't born in Westwood. I was actually born in Mission Hill, raised in Dorchester, and we lived in My wife and I lived in West Roxbury prior to moving to Westwood in 2005. So I have three children with my wife. We have a soon-to-be 21-year-old. I have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. My oldest, Marissa, goes to Bentley College, and she'll be a graduating senior with any luck this year. My son is a second year at Providence College, and my youngest daughter will be a senior at Westwood High School. So in addition to that, I serve on the select board here in Westwood, and I was just reelected to my third term. So I am elected official, but more importantly, I'm a practicing attorney, as you started with. I've been practicing for 33 years. Boy, it sounds like a long time.
But you're a young practitioner. I got
yes.
you beat by a mile.
Well, so let me tell you a little bit. So my father is a retired Boston police officer, and my mother is a retired vice president from a bank in Dorchester. They both still live in Dorchester. In fact, Marty Walsh bought a house on their street. So that gives you an idea of a nice neighborhood. St. Gregory's Parish, for those of you that are originally OFD.
All right, so we got to know those parishes in,
that's
it.
That's how you know. That's how you know if they're telling you the truth. That's how you know. So I've been representing injured workers and families for 33 years. First I did it, as you said, at Win and Win, where I went from an associate, came in as a lowly associate, just out of law school, made my way up to partner and then managing partner in the Boston office. And then 18 years ago, I actually started my own practice. And during that time, like I said, I've been representing individuals and families and trying to do whatever I can throughout the entire legal system. Not just the probate court. I'm not going to say I just do probate work. I do work in district court, superior court, federal court. And I'm licensed, although I've never had the privilege of going all the way up to the Supreme Court. So I am, fully practicing all the time. And I think that's probably the best asset that I'm bringing to the table is a well-rounded attorney who knows what other courts do and what the probate court doesn't do. As I like to say, you don't know what you don't know. So by being in these other places, you see what works and what doesn't work, what type of filing system they have, what type of, setup they have when you go in to file a claim. Can you do it by telephone? Can you call in a check? How do those things work? I mean, COVID has definitely changed us, and good or bad, I was talking about these things before COVID hit because it can make life so much better for anyone who has to go to probate court.
Michael, let me just jump in here because what I want to do is dissect the conversation because part of this is educating the listening audience to what it is. So let's do probate court registrar's office 101.
Okay. So for
Let's
those
walk
people,
because you said you've practiced in the courts. You looked at the court system as a practicing attorney. I have some familiarity. I don't do it as much civil and litigation practice that you might do. And when you said 18 years ago you started, I said, my goodness, I couldn't believe that's when we were up there on Beacon Street. That was more than 18 years ago. I thought it was just yesterday. But anyway, that's dating us, and I'll leave that be for the moment. But let's do a registrar's office in a probate court, and it's very similar in all of the probate courts, but let's deal specifically with Norfolk. Walk one through what that office does, um, your understanding of how to practice within that. Let's do a registrar's office, Norfolk County 101.
okay. So most people, Joe, in fact, even the state does not seem to value this office because we're the second last office that you'll vote for on the ballot, right? But for example, the sheriff is above us. So the sheriff has probably 400 inmates a year. The probate court averages 45 to 50 cases a week. And so the cases that come through that door are anything to do with family is the jurisdiction of the probate and family court. So, for example, divorce, child custody, alimony, child support, a guardian ad litem, wills, estates, trusts. Those are the things that are handled at the probate court. The register of probate is responsible for managing the staff. It's responsible for managing, the fees that come in and reporting them to the trial court. It is responsible for negotiating, if you will, believe it or not, a budget with the trial court, for each of the probate courts. So there's a whole lot of things that go into it, but the register is the person who basically manages the staff, but more importantly, steps up and creates ideas, creates new incentives or ways to help people. And this is the number one court, Joseph, that people come without lawyers. It is the number one court system. And that's probably why I say the probate court gets a little less love than some of the other courts because attorneys are always fighting to improve that court. And so if the attorneys are fighting for that court, then the money's going to go to the probate, to the superior court where things are better. So it really is going to take a good negotiating, sitting down with Judge Casey and, trying to fight and advocate so that we get the resources to make this court better for everyone. Not just lawyers and judges, but people who come there and need us.
Well, I am familiar with probate court, and I won't give my opinion as a practitioner because some of the judges and others may see this program. But in many jurisdictions, this is called family court because it deals with family issues.
Right.
You mentioned, it could be change of name. It deals with issues involving, as you pointed out, in terms of child custody. It deals with the issues involving Division of Transitional Assistance. No, excuse me, the Department of Children's and Family. All of those
Right.
issues, those family type issues, come before this court. And you're absolutely correct. Most of the litigants in here are without counsel. So even with your assistant registrars who would work under you at the court, you're helping them file papers. You're helping them navigate the system. When they come back down from the hearings, what do they need to do? Going to probation, serving the papers. All of those things are handled within the registrar's office.
Right. And so what I really look focused on, Joe, is communication. So what I tell people all the time in my 33 years practicing is I tell people, look, as long as I continue to keep you educated, when the time comes for you to make a decision, you'll be able to make the right decision because you'll know all the possible outcomes. You'll know how long things take. You'll get an idea right from the beginning. And so I am always, and anyone who's been my client, and I'm sure there'll be some watching that, live in your district, will tell you that I am probably spent more of my time educating my clients so that they can later make the right decision. And I'm not afraid, to do that. And I want to do that as a register of probate. For example, for people who go to the register of probate court for anything to do with child support or divorce or any of those things, every single time they go, they have to fill out a financial statement. Now, even as an attorney, I can tell you that's not a piece of cake. In fact, it's very difficult. Most lawyers even have some specialists in their office that fill them out. But so why are we not creating, I'll give you an example, a YouTube video that explains it, right? And explains it in multiple languages so that you could go on there and see this is the form, how you fill it out. And so when you come to court, you don't have to spend an hour and a half trying to figure it out and guesstimate as to what certain bills are, how much the expenses are. One thing I find too is that they always want you to break it down weekly. I'm pretty sure most people don't pay their bills weekly. For example, you pay rent. I'm pretty sure I pay my mortgage monthly. But then you have to take it, divide by 52, figure out the number, and go from there. And it just seems that it's more confusing to people who don't know. I mean, as the attorney, I have the skills and I've been taught to do that. But if we're talking about the court that has most number of people that come in by themselves, they need that help and that education to be able to do it right.
Michael, let me do this. I now want to say you are the successful candidate and you have now assumed this office as the registrar of probate in Norfolk County. Recognizing some of the things that you've observed, good and bad, at the court, what are some of the things that you might institute? And I'm just going to throw a few out. For instance, um, to what extent would your court be outward looking in the sense of going out to the community and doing that community education you're talking about? What things might you introduce in terms of the lawyer of the day to help folks negotiate through some of these things that you're talking about, since we've already established that most of the litigants come without counsel and the types of forms. I can tell you, even as a practicing lawyer, when I first went into more so in terms of Suffolk probate court, certainly in the old building, I don't care what it. I felt like I was a fish out of water, and I've been practicing nearly 45 years now.
Right.
And and if you have lawyers who feel like they're fish out of waters, you can imagine how that uninformed litigant who is first and foremost intimidated by the process, scared, trying to navigate this. What are the types of things that you might consider? You're sitting there as the registrar in January, and what would you do?
So, Joe, I think obviously when you go in the door, you don't change things right away. First thing is you observe, you listen to people, especially the staff, because they recognize what's working and what's not working. But to give you an idea, like part of the reason that divorce is so expensive when you do get a lawyer is because of all the hours that are wasted, right? Lawyer gets there at 9 o'clock. The case doesn't get called until 11:30. You're paying your lawyer 2.5 hours to sit in that bench and wait to be heard from the judge. So as far as attorneys and even people without lawyers, I'm going to try to schedule a slot, right? You get a specific time. You're there, maybe two cases are on at 9 o'clock, two cases are on at 9:30, two cases are on at 10 o'clock. And if you miss your slot, you'll be out, right? And you'll have to come back another time because that keeps the court moving and keeps it better for everyone. One other thing, because I'm a selectman in Westwood, I can tell you there is a regional transportation bus that goes through here, and we need to work with them. There needs to be almost a shuttle bus from public transportation. There is no way for members of the public to get here without a car or without a Lyft or an Uber or whatever other agency there might be to get there. There's no way to get there. One thing that I definitely have been talking about since the beginning, and COVID is going to make it more realistic, is to have satellite offices of the court. For example, Plainville. If you live in Plainville, you got to come all the way up to Canton for anything that has to do with the probate court. Plainville just built a public safety building that has a room large enough to conduct a courtroom there, right? Maybe 1-2 days a month. And if you start to circulate that for just a second, you think about if everyone has to come to the probate court, it's not big enough, especially with COVID right now, to be able to fit those people in. But if you spread it out, the different areas, and either the judge comes in or the judge is available like we are right now by video to hear your case, and you just step up to the podium and be able to talk to the judge. There are a whole bunch of things that there's so much out there now that I could talk for hours, but we don't have hours. But those are just the simple things. But I think people who come to that court who've never been in front of a judge, right? This is the first time, the husband has decided he's leaving the wife, and now the wife is in court, doesn't have money, doesn't know what to do, never been in front of a judge. People should realize, okay, this is the etiquette that you should have when you come to a court. You shouldn't dress like you're going to the beach, right? I'm not saying you have to wear a suit and tie, but you should look presentable. You should also learn not to talk over the judge. Nothing aggravates the judges more than when you interrupt them. And these are simple things, but people just don't understand them. Or if they understand them, they're forgetting them when they get in front of the judge, and they're not doing themselves any favors. Um,
Well, that
I've been on Zoom calls with the judges and the Norfolk County Bar Association every 2 weeks since COVID started about ways that we can try to keep this court moving. Obviously, there was some serious downtime, and the court is still catching up. But on these Zoom calls, the court is now moving towards 100% virtual courthouse. That you should be able, by the time this is done, you could do everything without actually visiting the courthouse. And let me tell you, that's saving a lot of money for clients that have lawyers because they don't have to drive to the court, wait to be heard, and then drive back to the court and bill their clients for it. So it could be a
what's
win-win.
interesting. What's interesting is that COVID has really educated a lot of industries as to how they can better provide service without making that physical and particularly that those drive times in order to get to it. So COVID has been helpful there. It's you've just described, and I'm not at all surprised your ability to very intricately begin to look at what might be useful and helpful, and in the registrar's office. And you've done it with the compassion and the sensitivity to looking at it from the standpoint of that uninformed litigant. We attorneys will, if you're in there enough, you learn your way, as they say, you learn where the bathroom is. At some point in time we learned it, but that litigant who's only in there for the first time for the types of issues they're already stressed is going to be difficult. So your thoughtfulness as to the types of things that you can to help the litigant, I think, is very refreshing. And I say that from the standpoint of, and again, I want to now shift over to Michael Walsh, the candidate, because you have other people who are running, and I would be surprised that they would be able to speak as eloquently and so personally about these types of issues because they've never been there.
Well,
They, no, no, no.
three of them have never been to the courthouse.
Yeah. Well, see, so what I'm saying is it sounds nice that they're running. So now I want to speak to Mike Walsh, the candidate, and say, okay, talk to me about, I'm asking you to be derogatory towards the other candidates, but the reality is, I want you to be able to say to folks, this is the reason why you are the best candidate. So this
Right.
is your opportunity, sir.
So, Joseph, so there are five people in this race. And so it comes down to this, and I'll give you the numbers in order. There are three candidates from Quincy. Two of those candidates are not lawyers. Um, and I believe at this point in time, both of those are unemployed except for their municipal job. One is on the school committee and one is on the city council. A third person is an attorney, and when I recently did my research, I see that she's still registered in Washington, D.C. So never been to the courthouse. Those are the three from Quincy. There is a young lady from Norwood who's running. In fairness, she has some experience at the courthouse, but not enough. She just does adoption stuff, from what I can tell. So I say to be well-rounded, Joseph, has been, I think, the biggest asset. But let me tell you, so my wife and I had this discussion the other day, and she says, honey, you come across very professional. She said, but I think you need to let people see the lighter side of you. Why would you be, the most compassionate? You hear people say that, the woman from Norwood takes care of, helps families and young children. So why would you be more compassionate than her? And here's the true answers, Joe. So last Friday and then Saturday, I went to a wake and a funeral for a friend of mine who lost their 22-year-old son. Right, terrible, tragic accident. Was unloading an ATV and it fell on top of him, crushed him internally, and actually they couldn't save him. He bled internally. Terrible, terrible thing. So why do I bring that up? Because 9 years ago, Joseph, I lost my daughter to complications from opioid addiction that happened years ago. But I can tell you that that was a very trying time for me, both professionally and personally. And so I think that when people come and say that, these are the crises with their families, I think I'm probably the person, believe it or not, who's most in position to feel the compassion, understand what they're going through. I told my friends that I'm coming to see them tonight, just to sit down and try to help them through this. It's never easy. This is a club. I say that we don't want any members ever again if we can avoid
I'm
it.
a member, as you
So
know. In
I
terms,
know,
I lost my son to suicide. It'll be 10 years, August 3rd. You don't
and
forget
so
the day, you don't
I
forget
know,
the time. And
and you,
sometimes you can talk about it and not cry. And
that's
other
right.
times you can talk about it from an academic sense or in a helpful sense, but you still feel it. So, I mean,
I
I,
know,
I pray your strength and certainly that family and friends of yours that we're speaking of.
and
Go.
yours as well, Joseph. I tell people all the time, it never goes away. It just gets at times a little less painful. That's all.
Yeah. So, so I wanted you to talk about that experiential difference there because, yes, you've said you're a selectman in Westwood. You've
Yeah.
served with the Bar Association. So you understand that civil commitment and the giving back from your political involvements, and that's much to be appreciated. But we need experience when we start talking about this. I mean, it's nice for people to want to run. It's nice that a person who's been a school committee person wants to come over and to serve in terms of this court for whatever reason it is. But we, the public, when we want to see the operationalizing of what goes on in that court, we want somebody who is not learning on the job. We want someone who brings experience to the job. So I may be saying this. I want you to do a little bit of bragging, my friend,
Okay.
because I want you to be. I want the people when they look at this to be able to distinguish you from the other persons, not on a personality basis in the sense of this or that. I'm talking about just simply on experience. Tell us why Mike Walsh will be the better person for this job.
So let me start with the simple one first, Joe. So I'm not running for a job. I have a job. Three of these candidates are running for a job, right? That's not the way to be going into this court system. This is a system that really needs someone who cares, someone who understands, someone who can negotiate, right? And as I said to you, there's a budget that comes out of downtown Boston. You have to go and sit with the trial court and all of the other register of probates and figure out, where the court is going and how that's going. That's not something that you get in negotiating skills, doing other jobs. It comes from being a lawyer. There's no doubt about it. Probably the biggest thing, and I'm just going to jump back for 1 second. Biggest thing that I would say that's going to happen at the courthouse when I go in there, and I'll say this from day one or week one, someone's going to answer the telephone, a real live person.
Oh,
You are not going to go to digital. You're going to have someone answer the phone and say, "Thank you for calling the Norfolk Probate Court. How may I help you?" And you'll get someone there and say, "Okay, let me send you to the right person." Okay. And that's the first thing I'm going to do is take out the voicemail, although you may end up going to somebody else's voicemail because they might only be able to handle one call at a time, but you're going to actually get a live person. Right. And so how do you know that? Because every other court you call right now, you have to go through this maze to get through to anybody. And if you're a member of the public and you get on that cycle where you go through several times because if you don't know who you're going to talk to, that's the first frustration that happens at the courthouse. But I tell people all the time, Joe, when I left Win and Win, and I'll tell you this story. I don't know if you know this or not, but when I left Win and Win, I had 125 clients, right? Somewhere around there. Out of all of my clients, only 3 stayed with Win and Win. Now, Win and Win was a pretty big law firm. And the 3 that stayed were friends of Tom Wynn's. And they actually said to me, "I would come with you, but Tom would never speak with me again."
I know, Tom. That's a fact.
And, and so, so what I tell people is this: I am about, making sure that I keep people informed, that I return their phone calls, And those are things that are really important to just the average person. And to go to be a member of the court system. I mean, I'm a member of the Norfolk County Bar. I'm a member of the Norfolk County Advisory Board, and I'm a member of the Norfolk County Selectmen Association, right? Now, I'll tell you what each one of those are real quick. So the Norfolk County Bar, obviously, that's all of the attorneys in Norfolk County, and it's an association we get together. But I sit now on the executive board of that. I also serve on the Norfolk County Advisory Board. Now, what the heck is that? That is a representative from each of the towns advises the Norfolk County commissioners on the budget, on the Norfolk Aggie School, on the President's Golf Club. I mean, so there are things, that's a $30 million budget. As a selectman, we just crossed this year in Westwood, we crossed a $100 million budget, right? So we create the budget. We sit down with the departments, we go through it. Obviously, when you're negotiating, that some department comes in at 8%. Nope, sharpen the pencil, come back to us. That's way too high. Get them down into a range of about, 2.5, 3% is all we can afford, and that's all we're going to afford. I mean, my experience as a selectman, I understand that there's going to be some financial trouble going forward because of COVID. Whether it's increased cleaning, whatever it might be, and I'm going to do the best I can to figure out ways to not have people laid off or furloughed and any of those things. And it only comes from experience, from doing the job. You can imagine what it's like, but until you actually sit there and you're accountable to people. And I say that because as a member of the Norfolk County Bar Association, I'm going to see these people all the time. And if things aren't working right, you can bet they're going to be in my ear. If you're not an attorney and you take this, you're not accountable to anyone, and no one's going to care. It's a 6-year job. This is a 6-year term. It's not a 2, if he's bad in 2, we can replace him. That's not the way it works. There was a non-attorney who was recently appointed, or a couple of years now, was appointed in Suffolk. And that building almost collapsed. In fact, the SJC removed that individual because the court system was so bad, and when tried to make changes, that had no idea what he was doing. So it's really important that an attorney gets in there, an attorney with experience, because you remain accountable to the Bar Association, and you remain accountable to the public. And I say that because I didn't get elected for my 3rd term in Westwood because I'm not listening to people. I'm not doing what's best for them, and I'm considerate and take everyone's phone call. Sometimes I spend more time answering phone calls from my town than I do my clients, but that's okay. I understand that. And as I said, and I say it all the time, when people are educated, they understand, then they're willing to, be with you when you decide things that need to be done.
Well,
So
let me make an observation based upon what you said, because not only are you a great attorney, as I've already said, you also a manager, you also develop policy, and you also know how to look at and manage a budget. That's what you would do as a select person. So again, I'm emphasizing the experiences which translate over to what one would do as a registrar of probate. All of those components, and also managing people. So all of those things, are things you do. And I just wanted to make sure I bring it to the forefront that people will see the listing, so that I'm doing it. You're not doing it from the standpoint of bragging about Mike Walsh. I'm making observations based upon the experience that you have already done and demonstrated. But let me deal with another issue that's in here, which is near and dear to me. I'm an African American male and an attorney in there, but there are biases that are in the court. There's biases in clerks' offices. So talk to me about how Mike Walsh would address some of those issues, because many of your litigants, many of the people that will be coming to the registrar's office are going to be Black and brown people that you have to deal with. And I know, having worked with you at Win and Win, your clientele was across the board. Even many were Native
still is, just
American.
so you know, still is.
Yeah, yeah, it was Native American. Talk to me about your views and your sensitivities in those particular areas. We can't avoid that. It's here in front of us now in 2020.
So, Joe, there really is, as far as I'm concerned, there is no tolerance in the court, right? Especially in the probate court. Everyone needs to be treated the same. Everyone needs to be treated fairly. And you know, as I said before, I mean, I grew up in Dorchester. You know, I went to Don Bosco Technical High School. You know, that was a pretty diverse school because it was a technical school. You know, people forget technical schools. People think they're maybe not going to go to college. Listen, I'm a lawyer, but I could put your cabinets in the kitchen for you. So that
You're
wasn't, you
hired.
know, that wasn't what I thought at the time. But you know, those people like everyone went to that just because they didn't think they were college material, right? And so from the beginning, I've learned, you know, as I said, I grew up in Mission Hill, right? And so Mission Hill at the time, very diverse area. My parents actually grew up in the projects. So what I tell people is, I have never in my entire life been discriminatory. People come to my office and, for example, Social Security disability, right? That's a system that no one should do without an attorney. Anyone who comes to me, anyone, I've always taken their case. And I don't get paid on some of them, Joe. In fact, I've even at times, and I don't like to say this too often, but my wife's not here, so I can say this.
But
There
she's
are
going to see
times
this
I've even
tape.
told, there are times I've even told the judge, Your Honor, if you put my client on from today, I won't get paid a fee, but that's not important to me. It's more important that this client gets the benefits that they need to be on Social Security or whatever it might be. And so, you know, I will work to make it more diverse, Joe. I mean, I don't know what the hiring is right now. I understand there might be 3 openings, according to Mr. McDermott the last time, but you know that might depend. That might go away because of the budget. But people will be retiring, and to have a diverse community in the courthouse makes everyone feel more comfortable. It teaches, you know, people to get along, and I couldn't be more um, liked, honestly, by some of my clients, Joe, who are of color. You know, and I spend the time with every single person. As I like to say, I don't. Color is not an issue when you come to my office, ever. And as far as I'm concerned, I will do everything to continue to make that and bring that into the probate court so that everyone is comfortable all the time in that court. And if they're not, I will give my phone number directly. And I believe it or not, I'm not changing my cell phone or getting a second phone. I may have to empty the voicemail once a day, but you know, that's the type of person that I am. You need to have someone who's willing to, you know, be on this job 24/7, not 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, you know, when the court is open. It's someone who's thinking about the court system and making it work for everyone. And that's the only way every court system should work. I'm not shooting for higher office, just so you know, I'm just shooting for this office. So,
Well, you know, I asked you that question because I wanted to have the viewing audience hear your response. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. I said earlier that I worked with you at Win and Win. We shared the time up there on at 10 Beacon Street, you know, for a period of time. As well. So I've seen that demonstration of that sensitivity and that type of commitment. And is very, yes, is it important to me? Extremely important to me to find a person. And as you know, Mike, we hadn't spoken in a number of years. I happen to look and I say, oh, this guy, no, I said, oh, Mike Walsh is running for this position. I called you.
yes, you did, Joe.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
called you and said, hey, Mike, you know, let's get let's get you on, you know, out here publicly so people get a sense of who you are and try to distinguish you from the other persons who are desirous of running for this position. So I asked you that question because I wanted the viewing audience to get a sense of the man and the issue and to know that your compassion and your truthfulness on that issue it certainly comes through and I can attest to it because I've known you over these when you said 18 years that you were in fact it's beyond more than 18 years so I want to glad to be able to have you on and to say that but let's talk about it now let's talk about the mechanics of being a candidate. And I call it there's the MVP, money, votes, and people.
Yes.
So let's talk about that aspect. What are the needs are of Mike Walsh, the candidate for this position? What are you with an opportunity to speak to the viewing audience say you would want from them in terms of your candidacy for this registrar of Norfolk County?
So, Joe, so when you run for a county seat, it's kind of untraditional versus any other seat that you run for, unless you're running for president or senate or U.S. House of Representatives. We're talking 28 cities and towns. If you wanted to door knock, you would have had it start 28 years ago. I mean, it's that big that you just can't conquer it. So you reach out. The
Can you
number
tell
one
those
thing.
businesses again, Michael? Let me just stop you for a minute. I meant to ask this earlier on. Please
Sure.
tell folks when we're talking about the cover, because I know you mentioned Plainfield, and I know I don't even think that's the southern part of this district. Can you just give folks a sense of the width and breadth of this Norfolk County responsibility that you would have as the registrar of probate Norfolk County?
All right, let me try to do this. I've been practicing, so let's see how well I do. Let's go. We'll go alphabetically. All right, so we go Avon, Bellingham, Canton, and you get to Dedham, Dover. Then you have what's after that? Holbrook, and you get to Quincy, you get to Randolph, Stoughton, Sharon. I missed a couple. Brookline, I missed. And then you get into right down 109. So you get to Westwood, Medfield, Millis, Medway, Franklin, Foxborough. So, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And then you get into the Needham, and you go over to Wellesley, and you get to Westwood, Weymouth. Let's see, I think I have most of them. There's 28 of them. So that gives you an idea. And I may have missed one or two. And if anybody's watching and that's your town, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't put the list in front of me.
But you want their vote anyhow.
That's right. That's right. And Joe, it's hard, 28 cities in town to do one mailing, just one mailing, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But one mailing is somewhere around $14,000. Okay, that's to get one piece of mail, no bigger than 6.5 by 9, because if you go to 8.5 by 11, it goes up by 3 cents a mailing, so there'll be around 18,000 for that mailing. But so, you kind of have to corner the market, so to speak. So where is the most voters? I'd like to reach every single voter if I could, but that would take over $100,000. And in COVID, that's impossible to raise unless you are Michael Bellotti. But, and his father did raise him $100,000 in 2 months. So, but for the rest of us who do not have Mr. Bellotti as our dad, have to work with what we have. So I am reaching out. You will see a social media blitz. If you're on your phone, hopefully that you're going to see my logo and see my ad. And it'll be very simple. But to do a mailing, even at $14,000, you know how long that mailing lasts, Joe? It lasts from the mailbox to the recycle bin for most people. So if you don't make your pitch and they don't look at it in the first 30 seconds, it might even go right into the recycle bin without even looking at it. So people, you got to make an impression. And nowadays, because of COVID, I can't knock on doors. I can't go to concerts on the common, right? In your little town. When the first time I ran for a county seat, I was in Norwood Center. They used to do concerts on the common on Sunday night. I could walk around, shake hands, say hello to people, and, get some votes that way. That is gone for right now. The best thing to do is hold signs. So money is key. Next, obviously, is votes. I mean, let's face it. I need every single vote that I can get. 3 candidates out of Quincy makes this race much more winnable for me, much more. If there was one candidate out of Quincy, it could be over. And that's why you have 3 out of Quincy, is because one candidate from Quincy can win this seat because they have, 25,000 votes. But to now split that 3 ways is a blessing. And the women vote. There are 3 women, so the women vote will be split 3 ways. So votes are obviously most important. Quincy has owned this seat. I'm not afraid to say it on your television show, Joe. Quincy has owned this seat for a long time. This is an opportunity for someone outside of Quincy to actually serve in this position. So even our president registrar right now, Pat McDermott, is from Quincy. So it's not an easy thing. The last, of course, is people. People to hold signs, people to send out text messages or emails to their friends. And, you get the snowball effect. You say to your 10 friends, you send out this little blurb, and we can send you things to send out. You send it to 10 people and ask them to send it to 10 people and ask that chain to continue. Pretty soon you've reached a lot of people, within an hour from your computer. right? And that what's better than direct personal contact from a friend of yours who says, "Hey, Michael Walsh is running. He's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. Would love to have your vote." And I offered, and only one person has taken me up on it so far, is to do a Zoom call like this. You want to do a house party, and you can't do a house party. All right, everybody, grab a glass of wine. And Mike Walsh is coming on. He's going to talk for a half hour. You're welcome to ask him any questions that you want, and people can learn about me that way. It's not the same. I can tell you, I feel like I'm campaigning in a phone booth, right? A glass phone booth. All I can do is wave, and I can't, let you see my personality. I can't really have a conversation with you unless I get in front of you like this in Zoom. So those are the three things, Joe, as you say: MVP, money, votes, and people.
That's my
So
political, analogy is to have it. I had it listed differently in the past, but I think that I've learned that in campaigns, money is king, and so therefore I've moved it to its level of importance. But let's now that folks will have an opportunity to hopefully see this as you make this viral and it has its 1 million views. Um, what what how would one be able to contact the campaign? Let's give some contact information, Michael, so
sure.
that we so folks will know how to do. They won't have to search around. I know you have probably your Facebook page and all of that. So let's give them some ways in which they can exercise that MVP on behalf of Mike Walsh.
Sure. So the easiest thing, Joseph, is the website. So let's start with the website, walshforprobate.com. And there are no numbers. Some people try to put in a number for four, but it's Walsh, FOR, probate.com. Okay. Email is simple, Mike at walshforprobate.com. When you buy the website, it becomes more credible to have your email linked to the website. So I'm also on Facebook, right? Attorney Michael F. Walsh for Norfolk County Register of Probate. It's a long title, but Facebook doesn't care, so they'll let you put as long as you want. And you can follow me, and I do use social media probably almost daily. And I am probably one of the only candidates who's using it as much as anyone. Standouts, whatever pictures go up, people get to see themselves on Facebook, tag it, share it. That's what we're doing. I'm
So
on
how would
Instagram,
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Walsh for Probate, Twitter, Walsh for Probate. You can see there's a little consistency here. So those are different ways you can follow me. You can see what I'm doing. But getting involved, we're going to have sign holds. We're going to do Tuesday evenings and Thursday mornings. We tried the weekends. We find that we're down about 30% in most areas, but not all areas. Some areas will still stay busy. But I was in Dedham Square a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday morning, probably 20 to 30% of usual traffic on a Saturday morning. Recently, I was in Norwood. Probably there was only 30% of the traffic there. People are just headed out, especially if it's 90 plus, they headed out somewhere cooler if they can. And so they might be leaving Friday night or early Saturday morning, and you're not catching them before they go. So,
What is the preferred way in terms if one wants to get involved in the campaign, though, Michael? I know you're giving ways in which they can find out about you through those mediums, be it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, and I don't know anything about Twitter and Instagram. I'm not on those, but if one says, okay, I like this guy, I
yeah,
think he would be a great candidate. I like to work on his campaign. What is the preferred way for one to be able to get to the campaign?
email is probably the best, Joseph. But if anybody sends an email and for some reason doesn't get responded, call my law office. Right, that number is simple. And if I'm not in the office, it goes to my cell phone, so you'll find me at some point in time. But Mike at walshforprobate.com, I'm checking it probably 4 or 5 times a day now. So even if people have questions, I tell them if you have a specific question you want an answer to, just email me and I'll email you back the answer. I've been in a couple of these forums where, some of my other opponents, people actually said to them, I sent you an email and you didn't respond. I don't ever want that to happen, ever. I want, someone wants an answer, I want to get back to them as soon as I can. So Mike at walshforprobate.com, or call my office. My office number, and I'll put it out there, is 781-251-0100, 0100. So
One of the things that in this world of candidates, and I respect anyone who wants to run for elective office. My own personal view is I don't run for anything but cover. So I respect one who wants to stand before constituents and to be evaluated and to be out front. But again, oftentimes in this, people will look at, well, who are the big wigs that are supporting Mike Walsh? Who are the persons from my neighborhood are in favor of, and supporting Mike Walsh? Any name dropping that you can give at this time?
Well, besides you, Joseph, and I know I thank you. Joe sent me a nice endorsement. I'm going to have Jim O'Sullivan. So Jim O'Sullivan is the past president, just stepped down 2 weeks ago, past president of the Norfolk County Bar Association. Right? Can't get any better endorsement. Jim practices in the probate court every day. He represents seniors in elder care and does a lot for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts with nursing homes. Jim is there probably every day. Jim said, Mike, there isn't a better candidate in this race, and I'm happy to endorse you. Luke Travis, he is we work with us, Joseph, at Win and Win, believe it or not. Luke is the town moderator down in Plainville, Massachusetts. Luke calls me on the phone and said, Mike, I have never put a sign on my lawn because I'm the town moderator. He says, but you can have one on my lawn and people will pay attention. Robert Jubenville, he is the Norfolk County governor's counselor. Bob has been kind enough to say, Mike, you have my support 100%. I will give you my endorsement in writing for you to be able to take that too. I've reached out and I'm waiting for a couple more. I know I can get more like Jim O'Sullivan from the Norfolk County Bar, because most of them, if not all of them, are supporting me, with the exception of Pat McDermott, because Pat was the past president, but he needs every vote in his race. So he doesn't want to pick one candidate and lose the votes of the people that might be supporting the other candidates. And I fully understand.
Pat's running for the
sheriff.
Sheriff.
Yes.
He's the sitting sheriff now, but he was bad. That was by appointment.
Little confusion. So here's not to get off my topic, but the sheriff's seat right now. Jerry McDermott, a Republican.
Jerry McDermott, that's right. Yes,
Jerry McDermott was put in by the governor.
Yeah,
and so Pat McDermott is the present register of probate.
That's right.
He is running for sheriff. So if Pat wins the primary, it'll be McDermott versus McDermott in the final.
I know, and I know Jerry, because he was a counselor in Boston. So
yes, he was. Yes.
So yeah, it's we've had those types of cases. Sometimes that double name works for, and sometimes it works against. So
right, and that's the whole thing you have to say, because I've been with at some of these events before COVID. I was with Pat McDermott, and you'd say, "Oh, I'm Pat McDermott. I'm running for sheriff." He goes, "Oh, I've already met you."
That's right.
I never met that guy before in my life.
Well, it's going to be an interesting campaign. And the interesting part about this, I mean, I've been involved in politics for a bunch of years, et cetera, but I've never, ever, other than my good friend Richard Ioneller in Boston, have I, really participate in the registrar of probate's race. But Richard was and is a good friend, former city councilor in Boston and all of that. But so it's quite interesting to have this conversation with you now and to try and elevate people's understanding and to inform them so that as they look up ballot, because as you said, this is going to be the last one and people may not even get here to this particular race, to be quite frank, in terms of with all that's on the ballot.
Good news is, Joe, we're not last. Believe it or not, there is one office that is considered below us. That is the county commissioner.
Yeah.
That is last on the ballot. We're second to last. But I can tell you, I'm not too far because Walsh, and they put you alphabetically. I'm just above the county commissioners by one line. So,
well, in terms of that's the reason why I wanted to do this interview, if you will, with you and have you come on Community Forum, because we're about educating our viewing audience. And I would bet to say that if I took a poll of people who knew about the registrar of probate, because if you don't have to come in for any of the reasons which we've talked about, wills and trust and child support and divorce and name changes and dealing with the Department of Children and Families and a whole myriad of other types of issues that are handled by that court, you wouldn't even know that the one that court exists, but even in terms of the registrar's office. So part of what we try to do at Community Forum, and the producer Roy Cohen and the station manager Mike Hammond, and you saw David earlier, who handles so a myriad of things. There's a bunch of folks around there that make my job easy, even in this time of COVID. Make my job easy to be able to bring on good guests like you, Michael, to inform our public. So we have a few moments that remaining. Let's talk about something that you want to say. I may not have asked you that question. We may not have already covered that. This is your opportunity to speak to the viewing audience as to whatever you would like. So, I'll try and stay quiet. You know that you know me long enough to know that that's hard. But nonetheless, I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak directly to them.
Well, part of that is too, Joe, is that you're a lawyer. It's tough to be quiet when you're a lawyer. But
True.
so I can tell you. So a couple things that I have probably that are that people think about. So when looking down the ballot, you see Westwood just by itself. People say, "Oh yeah, that's a community. That's kind of a stuffy community." And I'm not afraid to say that. I've been a selectman here 7 years. I hear it. I hear it all. That's the type of person that you are. But that's why I start out saying, listen, I live in Westwood now, but I'm a city kid. I happen to move here to educate my children. Westwood has one of the best school departments in the state. And so I moved here for that reason. Why I stayed here, if you want to make things better, you get involved. And I've been involved, right after I came on, before I even got elected. I started out as a PTO volunteer, became the PTO president. Then we had a town-wide group called WESC, which was known as the Westwood Elementary Schools Coalition. So before they all became 501c3s, this organization was the 501c3, raised a lot of money for the schools. In fact, at our last event, we raised over 50 grand and then split it up among the 5 elementary schools for the teachers and the kids to, get those little extras that make it a little bit better, maybe a Chromebook or whatever it might be, and we were continuing to help. But I tell people in this race, you don't have to say, what am I going to do? What promises am I making? I tell people, go back on my website and look and see what I've done, what type of boards I've been a part of. I'm a part of my church right now, even today, tomorrow, not today, I will be doing Meals on Wheels. I have the time. I work for myself. I schedule my court appearances, if you will, around my days that I have Meals on Wheels. There are so many people out there, Joe, that were doing it before that now, we're afraid, because a lot of them are retired people. So I stepped up and said, listen, I'm more than willing to help. I'm going to get, Joe, probably the greatest endorsement. I gave you all those people. Probably the greatest endorsement that I'll get is going to come from my Council on Aging director, right? Because I have not missed an event until last year. I missed one, but I go to every single event that the Council on Aging has. My grandmother lived till she was 94, God bless her, and she's been gone a while now. But, she taught me the importance of grandparents and respecting your elders and those things. And when I go to the Council on Aging, most, and I'm not afraid to say it, even my colleagues, that's 3 of us. 2 of them come in, they wave hello, they make their way around a couple tables, and within a half hour, they're gone. I get there, I serve the meal, I stay till the very end and help them clean up, right? Because that's the type of person I am. I want to be that person. I think a leader is someone who leads by example, not by saying it or do these things. I'm the first one to roll up my sleeves and get in there and help when I can. And so that's the type of leadership that this job really needs. Someone who's not afraid to step up to the counter if the line is too long, or, be the person. If I have my way, I'll be at the front door of the courthouse after COVID, welcoming people into the courthouse and trying to send them to the right person to go see there. I want people to come in and say, hi, I'm Mike Walsh. I'm the Register of Probate. What can I help you with today, folks? What are you here for? And send them to the right person and kind of give that feel that we've kind of lost of the personal touch. It's so important for people. You can imagine, Joe, and I can imagine this after COVID. There are going to be a lot more divorces after COVID. People thought that they could live with their spouses. Now they find they live with them 24/7, 365 days. That's not working out so well. So, understanding those things, and I joke, but, it is true. You find out things that You never knew until now that you're home with them 24/7. It was that time apart that, as they say, makes the heart grow fonder. And some learned that time apart was really, really necessary, and they're thinking the rest of their life is a good time apart. But
Well, I really is only a few moments. And Mike, I wanted to give you the opportunity to say that so people can understand your passion, understand your commitment to so many of these issues. And it just made me think about when you mentioned about the divorce, because not only that, we're talking about mental illness, child abuse, all of these things people are finding out during this COVID time are intensifying for sure. And certainly the one for me, when we look at this court again, the issues dealing with the issues of what happened with people who need psychiatric care, persons who are dealing with mental illness, a lot of these things come through the probate court and they originate process wise through the registrar's office. So that office demands that persons have some skills, some experience, some compassion, some understanding. I like your sense of outreach and looking outward towards the persons who may utilize the registrar's office and the probate court. So, again, I just think knowing you that you're not just not blowing smoke here. This is the real deal, folks. I want to say that to the viewing audience. I'm glad that we had this opportunity, and I'm coming down to the last minute or so, Michael. So I just want to be able to say uh, I uh, hope for you much success in this run for this particular office. I think that you are a great and I will even go as far to say the best candidate for this position. And I hope that the voters on September 1st think otherwise, because as we know, that's it. That's the ball game.
that's right.
September 1st is the ball game. It's not a second chance. You don't get a second bat. So wanted to tell the viewing audience to pay attention to that and to do it. So we've come to the end, Michael. I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to be on the program. And I'll leave you with the last few words.
Thank you, Joseph. So, what's really important, Joseph, is a lot of people, don't vote or stay out of the vote, or sometimes there are more blanks for this office than there are votes. I tell people, listen, for those that are kind enough to watch and get an opportunity to meet me, reach out to your friends. Maybe they never voted, but now they have an opportunity. They don't have to go to the polls. It's a three-step process to vote from your house. You can go online, or you should have received a ballot in the mail if you're registered. If you're not registered, you can still register to August 22nd. But you request a ballot, they mail it to your house, you fill it out, you sign the envelope, and you get it back to town hall by election day, and that counts. Every person needs to suddenly step up because we want good people in office. People always say, why can't we have good people in office? Now you have an opportunity. Let's see if you can help.
Well, I'm going to leave you with that last word. Thank you, my friend. Good luck on your race, and we'll see each other soon.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Thank you, Joseph.